The journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Sacerdoti joins me now. Jonathan, this wasn't entirely unexpected, but it's nonetheless quite a big move from Netanyahu, isn't it?
It is indeed a big move, and it has to be said that I don't think that this was necessarily Israel's first resort. I think it's really the last resort. They've chosen to do this because all other possibilities have really been exhausted. And that to say, this war's been grinding on for nearly 2 years now, and there have been all sorts of criticisms of Israel's conduct during the war that it's tried to redress at various points. But it has got to the point where they haven't fully defeated Hamas. They haven't stopped the threat from existing in the future to Israel. And indeed, the people living in Gaza are also, as Benjamin Netanyahu said in that interview excerpt that we've seen from Fox, they are living under the tyranny of Hamas as well. People have been asking constantly what will happen the next day. And so I think this is perhaps the answer to that question. Maybe some of those people didn't want to hear.
What do you expect the reaction to be? Because we're in a situation where Israel controls between 65 and 70% of Gaza at the moment. Surely this will involve a huge stepping up of the military aspect of things, and you've got an Israeli public, 75% of who want the war to end, exhausted reservists, for example, who will not relish the challenges that this would bring militarily.
Yeah, there has been debate within Israel over whether or not this is the right approach, and there are those who think it is and those who think that it isn't. Ultimately, if this is the decision that is cleared and that is made, then, as you say, the military will have a part to play. In discussion so far, what the suggestion has been is that they will try and separate out the civilian population from the Hamas dictatorship, tyranny, jihadist, Islamist terrorists, and place them somewhere where they are able to be safe, where they're able, for example, to receive aid readily and safely and things like that, and where Hamas does not have control over their lives or over the Gaza Strip, or indeed, most importantly for Israel, over weaponry and the ability to attack Israel, whether it's by rockets and terrorism or whether it's by incursions and invasion, as they did on October the 7th, 2023. And that will be a very big undertaking. Now, Netanyahu has said in that interview that Israel doesn't want to keep the Gaza Strip. It doesn't want to govern it. It wants to hand it over eventually to Arab forces. Now, that could mean one of a few things. He's not been specific in the extract we've seen so far. It could mean either to find some form of alternative leadership within the Gaza Strip to Hamas. That certainly won't be easy. It could be to hand it over to the Palestinian Authority, but Benjamin Netanyahu and others have ruled that out previously because they are also corrupt and certainly not committed to non-violence. Or it could be to get involvement from other Arab countries, from neighbouring countries who may want to play a part in governing the Gaza Strip or may not. So all of those things will be challenges ahead. And that's why this won't be a simple end to the problem, to the conflict. It may indeed see it change in form, but it will be Israel taking control again in a way that it feels that it can make sure that that kind of horrific attack that happened in 2023 can't happen again, and that indeed the intolerable months and years before that can't happen again. Let's not forget that Israel withdrew completely from the Gaza Strip 20 years ago. It's around the 20th anniversary right now of that. It did so unilaterally, and the rockets were launched within 1 month of that withdrawal. Israel literally uprooted thousands of Israelis from the Gaza Strip where they lived, where they grew vegetables, where they had agriculture, where they lived in many ways alongside Arabs, and it withdrew them, hoping that that would be the beginning of the end of the conflict. But I think we saw took 18 years to manifest, but we saw the logical conclusion of that. It was that Hamas took over. It embedded itself in the population. It punished its own population, and then it created the climate in which it was able to carry out that horrific attack. Israel just won't tolerate that anymore. I think that's what Netanyahu is making clear here, and I think that he's making it clear that Israel will go to whatever ends it needs to make sure that it's going to keep itself safe, whilst also trying to respect the population of Gaza.
Well, Israel is quite isolated internationally. I just wonder what it does with regional players in regard to this, especially Egypt, of course, has a border with Gaza, although it has been controlled by the Israelis. I just wonder what Egypt does or how big a player Egypt could be within this, do you think?
Yeah, the difficult part of all of this is that actually when you look at the reactions to Israel over the last 2 years, some of the harsher reactions actually do come out of places like the UK or France rather than the neighbouring Arab countries, who, of course, do have concerns about the Palestinians and do express those concerns. But also, they are far more realistic and aware of, I think, the problems and challenges that Israel is facing.
Because they have to deal with them. They just can't sit in their lefty ivory tower and say, "Isn't it all awful?
Yeah,
You dreadful people."
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly the point. So Egypt will have to decide exactly what it does do with its border. But even that, over the years, much of the weaponry that Hamas has relied on, and indeed much of the smuggling generally that's helped them to finance their operation, has taken place over and under the border with Egypt. So Israel is going to keep a very strict control over that rather than to allow it to be abused in the way that it has in the past, and that will be part of the cooperation between Egypt and Israel. I suspect that actually, if Israel is able to somehow restore some form of proper governance to the Gaza Strip, it might be the case that Egypt will be more comfortable in coming to terms with having that population on the other side of its border. Don't forget, of course, that Egypt has not really been very friendly or helpful to the Palestinian people in Gaza. It hasn't let them come over the border during the war to escape. And similarly, Egypt has wiped out vast amounts of Rafah on its side of the border in the past. So it's not the case that Egypt is somehow innocent in all of this either.
Certainly. I wonder if I could ask you about something closer to home. This is the arrests that have been made after people firing water pistols at people who are, I use the term advisedly, visibly Jewish, wearing the garb that sometimes comes with being members of the Orthodox community. We know that there are 2 arrests in Bolton as a result of this. This wasn't just people firing water pistols. They were doing it apparently for a purpose, and they've been arrested on suspicion of racially aggravated assault. What do you make of this, Jonathan?
Certainly. I mean, on the one hand, water pistols aren't going to hurt people, but you can see from these images, these people appear to be picking on members of the public walking past their car simply because they are Jewish, and they can tell they're Jewish, as you say, because they're wearing the clothing that's associated with certain Orthodox Jews who dress that way. I think this is obviously quite deplorable behaviour, especially at a time when Jews, Orthodox, non-Orthodox, more visible or not visible, are being persecuted and punished, feeling very insecure and unsafe. So I think it's definitely good that people...
Well, Greater Manchester Police, this happened yesterday and it emerged online yesterday. I don't know if it happened yesterday, but it emerged online yesterday. And Greater Manchester Police appear to have got their act together, unlike Avon and Somerset Police, who are still investigating. Inquiries are ongoing in regard to Pascal Robinson Foster of Bob Villan. I mean, I could have come to a charging decision in about 20 minutes as a result of that. In fact, less than that, in regard to someone shouts death, death to the IDF to thousands of people. Guess what? It's incitement.
Yeah, quite right. I think that, it seems sometimes confusing to understand how different police forces act and what makes them act. Water pistols, in this case, certainly I do think this is something that you should be pursuing. But as you say, chanting for death of the IDF, the Jewish States Army, and inciting a whole crowd to join in, things like that. And there have been plenty of other instances as well in the past. We've seen in the past that case some years ago, before even October the 7th, when men drove down with megaphones on their cars, shouting "F the Jews," rape their daughters, rape their sisters or mothers, I think it was. When we see things like that going on and those people were tried, never put in jail, we do have to ask really how joined up the policing is. Perhaps the police are getting their house in order. I don't know. We'll find out, I suppose, as things unfold.
Just one more question, Jonathan. Did we hear your cat in the background there?
I'm not sure if it was a cat or if it was a dog. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, okay. No, I thought it was a cat. I just wanted to know whether it was called Sacerdoti, but I just wondered. Listen, thanks for your analysis today. I appreciate that. That's Jonathan Sacerdoti there, who is a journalist and broadcaster.